My lifelong best friend leaked our private conversation to my boss, which got me fired. So, I went nuclear on her. I took her job, her relationship, and her home. We had worked at the same company, and for over a year, we were competing for the same promotion. I thought it was a friendly rivalry, but she ended up ruining my life over it. When I got the promotion, she didn't congratulate me or express happiness for me. Instead, she leaked our deeply private conversation to my boss. In this conversation, I had vented about my boss and jokingly said I slept with the CEO to get the promotion. It was crude, but it was just a joke between friends, and I was tipsy at the time. She knew I wasn't serious. It wasn't long before I was called into my boss's office and fired. But that wasn't the worst part. When I got home, I found my boyfriend with his things packed. Confused, I asked him what was going on. He showed me the same conversation I had with my best friend. In it, I had also vented about him, specifically about how frustrated I was with his mother controlling our lives. He told me that his mother would always come first, and if I didn't respect that, I wasn't the one for him. He left me that day. As if that wasn't enough, an edited version of the conversation where I supposedly talked badly about my friends was posted on social media. I tried to tell everyone it was fake, but no one believed me. I was left completely alone, and that's when I decided I would ruin my ex-best friend's life. At first, I didn't know where to start. I wasn't some criminal mastermind. I spent hours awake at night, thinking of ways to get revenge, but nothing seemed right. Then, one night, I decided to just start doing something. I knew everything about Sophie, my former best friend, and I figured I could use all of it against her. That's when it clicked. I knew exactly what to do. I went after her darkest secret. She had been having an affair with a married man for years. She had always sworn me to secrecy, and even though I didn't agree with it, I had kept my word. I always told her to find a man who wasn't married, but she never listened. One night, she asked me for advice because the man she was seeing, Drew, had stopped responding just before they were supposed to meet. She was all dressed up, makeup done, something she rarely did, and her hair curled. She even had his location on an app and saw that he was out of town, even though they had planned a date. I told her it was a sign to leave him, but she didn't want to hear it. Sophie was determined to drive to where he was, an hour and 45 minutes away at a nightclub. She asked me to go with her for support, and though I didn't want to, she guilt-tripped me into coming along. When we arrived, we saw Drew's car outside the club. Sophie flirted with the security guard to cut the line, and we pushed through the crowd until we found him. He was in a section with multiple women, and we watched as one of them kissed him and sat on his lap. Sophie, devastated, confronted him right there in the club, asking how he could do this to her after everything they'd been through. They had been seeing each other for 2 years, but that night, she realized she wasn't the only one in his life. Drew had always hinted over text that he would leave his wife for Sophie as soon as he was financially stable enough to handle their mortgage alone. She fell for this excuse time and time again. When Sophie confronted him at the club, Drew looked shocked to see her standing there. He fumbled to explain, but Sophie told me to wait for her in the car. I did exactly that. When she came out, she claimed it had all been a misunderstanding and assured me they were on good terms again. I never questioned her about that relationship after that night, until now. Determined to ruin her life as she had ruined mine, I went through our old text messages, photos, and any proof I could find of her long-standing affair with Drew. I wasn't sure why I hadn't exposed her before, but now I regretted not doing it sooner. Once I had gathered enough evidence, I anonymously sent everything to Drew's wife. The fallout was even bigger than I had anticipated. The wife didn't just confront her husband, she made everything public. She posted all the evidence online, dragging Sophie's name through the mud. Our entire friend group saw the posts, and people who had once admired Sophie turned their backs on her. She was humiliated. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to satisfaction, but I wasn't done yet. Next, I turned my attention to her career. Sophie worked at the same marketing firm where I had once been employed, and in that industry, reputation was everything. I knew exactly how to destroy hers. I created a fake social media account using her name and bought followers to make it look legitimate. I even posted some of the pictures from her real account to the fake one, buying likes to make it seem more authentic. After running the account for a week, I started posting offensive and controversial comments all over social media. At first, the posts were subtle, just enough to raise a few eyebrows, but soon, I ramped it up. The comments attracted attention, and people began reporting the account. Meanwhile, I sent an anonymous letter to her HR department, pretending to be a concerned coworker. I included screenshots of the fake posts and claimed Sophie had been making inappropriate comments in the office as well. The firm acted quickly. Sophie was called in, and by the end of the week, she was fired. I don't know the exact details of what happened during her meeting with HR, but I'm certain the rumors about her affair with Drew didn't help. Her professional life was in tatters, and once again, I felt that dark satisfaction. Watching her life unravel was exactly what I needed. I didn't have my job, my boyfriend, or my friends anymore, but now, she no longer had her job or her married boy toy either. The playing field was leveled. Still, I wasn't finished. I wanted her to know without a doubt that she had messed with the wrong person. Next on my list was her love life. Aside from Drew, Sophie had been dating a guy named Ryan for a while. Ryan was just a placeholder, someone to pass the time until Drew finally left his wife. He seemed like a nice enough guy, but I knew, like most people, he had his insecurities. Ryan had originally been a friend of both Sophie and me, so getting to him would be simple. The thing about Ryan was that he wasn't very active online, he didn't even have social media, and he had distanced himself from most of Sophie's friends. That was about to change. Because Ryan was so introverted, he didn't even know about Sophie's affair being exposed publicly. So, I made sure he found out. It wasn't easy getting to him, but I managed to find his email, his only form of online presence, if you could even call it that. That's when I began planting seeds of doubt. I sent him anonymous emails, hinting that Sophie wasn't who he thought she was. I even sent evidence of her cheating, including the text messages between her and Drew. I fabricated additional conversations to make it seem like she was talking to other guys too. Little by little, I chipped away at his trust in her. After weeks of this, Ryan finally broke up with her. Sophie was devastated. I remember seeing a vague post on her Instagram about heartbreak and betrayal. It almost made me feel bad, knowing she did like Ryan. But I also knew that if Drew had ever left his wife, Sophie would have dropped Ryan instantly, and that thought made me feel better. Any normal person might have stopped there, but I wasn't done. I set my sights on her home. Sophie lived in a nice downtown apartment, but I knew she was barely scraping by. Every time we went out for brunch or did anything that cost money, I usually had to pay for her. She often complained that her rent was eating up most of her paycheck. Sophie wanted the promotion so badly because it would give her some financial breathing room. She even told me she had been late on rent a couple of times. I used that information to tip off her landlord. Posing as a credit card company, I sent him an email suggesting her credit usage was high, implying she might not be able to pay rent again. On top of that, I spread rumors around her apartment complex about her affair and claimed she was mentally unstable. Neighbors started to complain, saying they were concerned about her behavior. Her landlord, wanting to avoid any trouble, evicted her. With no job, no boyfriend, and now no home, Sophie was left with nothing. She moved from couch to couch, crashing at friends' places, but even they started to distance themselves. I had taken everything from her, just as she had taken everything from me. Eventually, our friend group began hanging out without her, leaving her out of birthday parties and other events. Ryan and I started talking after he broke up with Sophie. I expressed my sympathy for how she had treated him, and he thanked me for being a real friend. He even asked me out for brunch, which I agreed to, feeling smug about it all. For a while, I felt like I had won. I had shown Sophie that she couldn't destroy my life without facing consequences. But as time went on, something began to shift inside me. The satisfaction I had felt started to fade, replaced by a growing sense of emptiness. I became obsessed with Sophie's downfall, checking constantly to see if her life had crumbled even more. The more I focused on her, the more I realized how much I had sacrificed in my quest for revenge. Ryan eventually stopped talking to me, telling me that every time we went on a date, all I talked about was Sophie. He said I was more interested in her than in getting to know him, and he was right. By that time, I had gotten a new job, one I was qualified for and had expected to excel in. But my work performance plummeted because I was using every waking moment obsessing over Sophie, instead of focusing on my career. I was isolated, angry, and bitter, just like the person I had destroyed. One day, while watching TV to escape from reality, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the black screen. I had won the war against Sophie, but at what cost? Not long after, I saw Sophie sitting alone at a coffee shop, staring at her phone. She looked tired and worn out, a shadow of the confident, vibrant woman who had once been my best friend. She didn't see me, and I didn't approach her, but something twisted inside me as I watched. For the first time, I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. I had gotten my revenge. I had ruined Sophie's life. But in the process, I had ruined my own. Reflecting on everything, I realized how consuming revenge could be. It ate away at me and turned me into someone I didn't recognize. I used to believe that destroying her would make me feel whole again, that I'd get my life back once she paid for what she had done. But I was wrong. Revenge is a poison. It doesn't just destroy your enemy, it destroys you too. I've lost Sophie. I've lost myself. And now, I'm left wondering if it was all worth it. The story of revenge started with betrayal and heartbreak, but it ended with a harsh truth. No one truly wins in a battle fueled by vengeance. As the author, my intention was to explore the corrosive nature of revenge, showing how it not only destroys the target but also consumes the person seeking it. The protagonist's journey, driven by a need to balance the scales after her life was torn apart, ultimately left her hollow and detached from the world she once knew. The conclusion serves as a reflection on the cost of revenge, how it spirals into an obsession that erodes one's sense of self, leaving behind only emptiness and regret. In the end, the protagonist is left wondering if the destruction of her former friend was worth losing her own identity, happiness, and peace of mind. Through her story, I wanted to convey that revenge might offer temporary satisfaction, but it always comes at a heavy price. Forgiveness, though difficult, is often the only way to truly move forward.